Hello all! Today I'll be working on hand-woven merchandise bags for the Mill River Marginalized Artists Collective, aka the nonprofit I helped start, and talking a bit about how our first event went and the recovery period afterwards as a disabled artist. I hope you enjoy. Dang, I really could not say recovery period to save my life, but here we go! My name is Took. I'm a disabled genderqueer weaver who's had life take odd turns, but who knows that even tattered and worn yarn still has value, and that tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. I weave exclusively with secondhand fibers, aided with adaptive warping, HR and OSHA cats, and a wonderful found family. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. I make these snap button bags a lot. They're some of the best sellers I have when I'm vending, but they're also so versatile and can be made in all different sizes. Like Mrs. Crocombe over at the English Heritage, I'll say, for this project you will need woven fabric, lining fabric, snap buttons, a button of your choice, a sewing machine with an adjustable zigzag stitch option, and embroidery floss and a strong needle. Because this is a fairly intensive sewing project, I won't be focusing on the weaving part of this, but it's the same method in other videos of mine. For these bags, I wanted to primarily use the lining fabric that I purchased from the thrift store last week while dealing with a Nazi. It felt important to me to bring some of that energy into Mermac merchandise. For those who are new, I'm one of the founders of the Mill River Marginalized Artists Collective nonprofit. Support for marginalized artists of Western Massachusetts by marginalized artists and our allies. Basically, it's us making a nonprofit so we have legal protections and a greater ability to utilize and grow mutual aid networks that were already in place. We had our first event on February 9th. It was a clothing swap and art market, and it was chaos, but so good in so many ways. We learned so much, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I take my lining fabric and cut it, or rip it as it's muslin, to the width that I want that I'm going to be making with this particular weaving blank. For my e-reader sleeves, these are measured to fit all editions of Kindle and iPad minis, but for these, I'm just working with what weaving blanks I have available because that's what time I had for these particular bags, but figuring things out as I go. Most of my snap button bags involve sewing two separate weaving projects or blanks together, but for these merchandise bags, I'll just be doing the one. So, sorry for the pun, I'll start out by getting the lining fabric lined up with the weaving blank, and then I'll use a tight zigzag stitch, almost an applique stitch, to sew around the edges. This stabilizes the woven fabric and prevents it from unraveling, like a serger but less persnickety. It's critical that I don't cut this section off of the weaving blank right away, but instead add another piece of the lining fabric. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, subscribe, or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, which acts as sort of a tip jar. Also, now that there are so many of you absolutely fantastic and wonderful subscribers, I've been able to link the online Hawksong Weaving shop, so feel free to check out the unique handwoven products. This next bit is absolutely a joke, but just in this case, in this economy, I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense fixed your cousin. Feel free to message me and I'll get you my payment deets. I take Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal for this nonsense. Now that I have both pieces of my lining attached, I'm taking my Don't Ask Me How Much I Paid for These Good shears and cutting down the center. For those familiar with machine sewing, it's like the opposite of stitching in the ditch, or at least that's how my brain makes sense of it. Now that I've cut this section off of the main weaving blank, it becomes clear why I started at the point I did, as I've left an opening to flip the bag right side out. To help in turning the bags right side out, you can use a hair stick for the fiddly bits, but you could also use a chopstick or a knitting needle or a butter knife, pretty much anything long and pokey but not stabby. If your weave is loose enough, you can poke through, but that's okay. It'll readjust and get back to itself. In this case, I was too impatient and I really just went at it with my fingers. A preface test rolling to make sure that this is going to be a good bag size, getting it folded, preemptively. It's like, okay, all right, that's going to be a great bag. And now working my way down the rest of it. I keep going down the woven fabric, sewing, cutting until I don't have enough left to make another snap button bag. Then depending on the amount left, I'll either cut my losses, make an odd-sized bag, or turn the remaining weaving blank into a few scrappy scented sachet bags for me to fill with scraps and scented herbs later on. One of the other founders is a linoleum printing artist. He made a lino cut of our glorious fish mascot, Mr. Mac, and printed out a bunch of patches for me to sew on these bags. We also have this pattern printed on various t-shirts and are going to be working on other lines of merchandise down the line. So if you want a fish of your own, you know where to go. The link's down below. I'm using the same tight zigzag stitch to attach the patches to these bags as I do when I'm working with my general weaving blanks and getting things sewn. It doesn't make sense to do a tighter applique stitch. It'll stay on very effectively and it'll still look very nice. working my way through the pile, and the weaving blanks and lining fabrics will be transformed into bag blanks. When I'm done with sewing, I clear down my kitchen table, get as many of the scraps under proverbial lock and key before Penelope Calico eats them and charges me an expensive vet visit, and then getting the bags to be over to my studio desk. For these bags, I'm eyeballing the length that I want. For an e-reader sleeve that I'm usually making, I'll use a busted up Kindle as a formatting guide. Work smarter, not harder, and that way I don't need to take e-waste to the dump. For these bags, I'm folding them in a way that looks good to me for where the patches have been placed. Then I'll take a pin and get the pocket of the bag held together. And now for sewing! I use a blanket stitch because it's sturdier and gives a nicer effect. I blanket stitch all around the edges, tucking the knots into the woven fabric as I need to add more floss. It's not worth it to measure out the entire length of floss you'll need for this project all at once. Even this length causes some snarls and tangles that have to be dealt with. The event, oh my goodness, it was so wonderful. We had around 300 customers, patrons, whatever you want to call them, coming by our estimation. It was hugely stressful because this was our first event and there were a lot of wrinkles we haven't ironed out. Almost all of us running this are disabled in some capacity or another, so we have our methods for vending that work for our bodies, but scaling that up was difficult. We learned so much, and now that we've mostly recovered, are champing at the bit for the next one. The euphoria of hosting, of seeing proof of concept, of proof that this works, that this is needed. I can't describe it. It was so good. But like all highs, there's a low to follow. The hangover, drop, recovery, whatever you want to call it, sucked. I'm essentially allergic to any heightened emotion. Mast cell activation syndrome combined with hyperadrenergic pots for the wind, baby. I wasn't sure I'd be able to get this video up due to brain fog recovery, and it's still lingering at the edges. My body probably won't be back to my baseline for another few days. I really overdid it physically, to the point that my ambulatory wheelchair user self will probably attend these events in my wheelchair from now on. It's more preventative maintenance than anything else, as I can do the physical work in the moment, but with the adrenaline and the euphoria of the event, I'm able to push my body much further than I should. And I regret it afterwards. Thankfully, I have enough former horse girlies in my life to explain that I need a hobble. I arrived home after helping pack everything up and essentially collapsed into a fetal position with my mind still having zoomies. I don't remember most of the next few days, to be honest. I know I made a video, I'm not sure how coherent it was. Mostly it was just constantly pouring water and Clairolite down my throat and making sure to keep track of my pain medication management. Clairolite, for the record, is my absolute favorite electrolyte sodium supplement. I'm not sponsored, but Clairolite hit me up. I will happily talk you up to anyone. For a flat button with holes, I'll start the knotted thread on the lining side of the flap, where it will be hidden underneath the outie part of the snap button. For shank buttons, also the outie snap button on first, and then cover the stitches with the shank button. But this is a flat button, so here we go. Now sewing the innie part of the snap button down, making sure to catch the lining fabric as well as the woven fabric so that everything's nice and sturdy. Taking a look at the almost finished product and sewing the inner knee button as a reflection of the outie snap button, and bada bing bada boom, and repeat for 17 more times, and then I've got some Mermac merch bags. I ended up taking these to an event that I was vending at on Saturday, whereas the Mermac event was on Sunday, and I've also learned in this not to do 2 events in one weekend, especially if I'm hosting one of them. Not sustainable for my mind, body, soul, energy, etc. But, oh, it was a good weekend. It's just, yeah, I'm still going to be recovering for a couple more weeks out, but it's proof of concept. It's proof that this is something that we need, something we can provide in our community. Everyone there was wearing masks, and which is great for me because I have mast cell activation syndrome. And for me, with my hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, weird skin, if I, and the hyperhidronergic POTS, if I can't mask reliably. If the humidity outside is above a certain threshold, I will get incredibly painful hives all over my face and almost immediately pass out if I end up wearing a mask because I'm allergic to my own breath. I'm also allergic to my own tears. Tears aren't supposed to burn your face, apparently. That's an EDS thing that I learned when I was first realizing what was going on. But it went so well. And yeah, there are absolutely things that we need to fix and iron out, but I can't wait for the next one. This was so, so good. If you want to support Mermac financially or by physical donation, we now have a mailing address, we have an office that things can be dropped off at, and all of that information, including the lists of things that we would like donated and things that you can donate to financially, are down below. If you're not able to at this time, then please give it a like. Please give the social media a like, a follow, a subscribe. Not really subscribe, we don't really have any content creation yet, but like, it's on the way, we're getting things going. And just, we've already experienced content suppression. Part of why we were so surprised that so many people showed up is that Facebook and Instagram took down our posts without any warning, and it was a bit of a scramble for advertising, and also, we've got bags. I get 50% of all the money going towards these particular bits of merchandise. It's one of the things that we have for Mermac artists, is that 50% goes to keeping the lights on and 50% goes to keeping things going for the artist as well. We're all working really hard to make sure that we don't burn each other out. Thank you for coming along as I made this. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending time with me at Hawksong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped, and I hope that you have a truly excellent week.